Welcome back to the Retro Sports Gamer channel. And this is February 2018. And we're back for another Retro Sports Gaming Monthly. And with me tonight, I have one of the co-hosts, Troy. What's up, Troy?
Hey, good to be here. Having a good time.
The other co-host, Nick the Commish. If you caught any of the stream yesterday, Sega-thon 2018, you probably have an understanding why he's not able to make it tonight. And his words exactly were he's in the doghouse a little bit. But anyways, we have Brad Bell with us tonight. He's our guest from Tecmo vs. RBI.com. What's up, Brad?
Hey, thanks for having me on, Tom. Appreciate it.
Yeah, last time we talked was last year sometime, and I believe you were talking about having just a Tecmo Bowl tournament with a high buy-in, and then you ended up switching that up, right?
Yes. So I did a little marketing for it, and at the price point to get into it, I didn't get a lot of bites or interest, so we decided to just go with this year with our normal Tecmo Bowl and RBI Baseball doubleheader tournament.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to you about that tonight and also seeing how that goes. One thing I wanted to ask you about is when I first saw your website, it's called TecmoBowl-RBI.com. I thought it was, a versus, like which game is better. When I started reading the site, I realized that that's not the intention of the site. So was it ever intended to be a battle between which game is better, or you just wanted to put information out there about both of these games?
Yeah, I just wanted to showcase the greatness of both games. They're my favorite two games, and so Tecmo Bowl is clearly my favorite of the two, but it's not a competition or anything. So I enjoy those football and baseball games.
Cool. Which game do you think is better?
I think Tecmo Bowl. I don't know. It's hard. You could argue either way. They were both the first games to feature players licensing, and the programmers did a great job of creating the player attributes and stuff like that. So either way is fine, whatever people's opinion is.
Yeah, I think it is a good comparison between those two games because of the era of when they came out, that the players have attributes that are there that you could noticeably feel and see on the field of play, but you just can't access them like you can in later versions of Nintendo games. So yeah. I think it's a good debate to have one day. We might even have it later tonight. So, Brad, I do admire your passion for the original Tecmo Bowl. That's why I wanted to have you on. You're still throwing tournaments for it. You're looking like you're probably the best player in the world in that game. So what is it that keeps you coming back to the original game over Tecmo Super Bowl?
I appreciate you asking, because most people might say I'm stupid or something, because Tecmo Super Bowl has more plays, more options and stuff. It might be a strange answer, but I first started watching the NFL in 1985 and then really followed it in 1986. So from a nostalgia standpoint, Tecmo Bowl perfectly preserves that era from my childhood when I first started watching the NFL, more so than Tecmo Super Bowl. I did play Tecmo Super Bowl a lot when I was a kid when it came out. So I really enjoyed the game, but I'm not really sure why I stuck with the original Tecmo. I will say this one thing, and I might be the only person on the planet that thought this, but when Tecmo Super Bowl came out and they made the character sprites smaller, that bugged me. Like I was kind of like, oh man, really? You guys did this? So that's not the reason why, but I do recall being disappointed in the size of the character sprites. And so
when you're playing on like a 13-inch TV, that's a big deal.
Yeah,
it's not like today, or you can run an upscaler to your flat screen or play on an emulator or whatever. I mean, back then, I mean, if you were sitting 6 feet back with your friend in a controller, and you could hardly. I mean, those big sprites were a big appealing thing, especially when you played a game like John Elway's football. I think everyone's super small in that, or 10-yard fight, But having, I agree. I like those big, oversized characters.
Yeah. And then I continued to play Tecmo Bowl through the 90s, and I introduced my nephew to it, and we started playing quite a bit. And that's where I started to really learn the intricacies of the original Tecmo Bowl, the strategies. And so the depth of that game started to become apparent to me. And so the more I investigated it with my buddies, the more it just kind of drew us in as to all the strategies and everything that we've incorporated and learned from the game. So
yeah, that first topic, or the first thing you brought up, the sprites being bigger, I know Troy already commented on it, but I've never heard that. But that does make a lot of sense, because if you think about during that time period playing games at the arcade, they were always better, and most of the time the graphics were better, the sprites were bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And to go backwards on the same console, that could be something that visually affects the way you feel about the game.
Yeah.
I think about Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, because in the arcade that game looks pretty great for its time.
Mm-hmm.
On the Nintendo, it's still really impressive for its time on the Nintendo, but it's clearly not the same game, and the sprites are smaller of the turtles in that game. So
I don't know.
With that.
I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on this, but I thought that as they went to Super Nintendo and then Nintendo 64, I actually thought as they tried to do more with the graphics, I disliked them more than when the sprites were bigger. When you're looking at the 8-bit NES games, I don't know what you guys think about that, but
I need a specific game reference. You're talking about Tecmo specifically, or just sports games in general?
Just any style of game in general.
At the time, I did not think that way. I was all about give me more graphics, make it look better, sound better. Looking back at it, as someone who plays retro games and retro sports games, a lot of games from that era, specifically PlayStation, they do not age well at all. Some of the Nintendo 64 ones still hold up pretty well. The polygons are a little bit better, but I see what you're saying with that. Some of those games, they were just the evolution of the graphics, and they don't look good looking back at them in time. The other thing that you said is, 1990, you were playing it, Tecmo Bowl, really getting into it. There was a time where there was a huge gap in between game releases. It wasn't every year like you have Madden coming out. So 1988 to 1991, that's a 3-year gap that you only have this one game. And if you compare it to any of the other football games on the NES at the time, there's really not much of a comparison to the original Tecmo Bowl, I don't think. So I could definitely see where you just really got into this one, and by the time the next one came, you're a little put off by the sprites and character, the smaller players, and then you just stuck with Tecmo Bowl. So yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from with that.
And I did play a lot of Tecmo Super. Just it's not like that strayed me away from it, but ultimately, that was a drawing point for me.
So if you look on your website, you do have attributes of a lot of the teams and players on there. That's a huge thing with Tecmo Super Bowl, is that it was one of the first games where you could go look at the player profiles and get all the attributes of the players. So you have some of the attributes of the players on your website. So what I wanted to ask you is just, who are some of the best players in the game? Specifically, I want to know about the top 2 QBs, top 2 running backs, top 2 wide receivers, and top 2 defenders in Tecmo Bowl.
Okay, all right. So here we go. So if you're looking at quarterbacks, I'm pulling this up here. Marino has the best arm strength. He has a 14 rating, and then Elway and Montana were second with a 13. You pretty much can't notice the difference when you play the game. The difference between the arm strength between those 2 or 3 quarterbacks. So it was pretty minimal. But those are the 3 elite quarterbacks by far and away.
I have a question on that before you go. How are you getting that information? Like, that's not like natively available to view in the game, right?
Yeah. There was a formula that my buddy uncovered, and what it did was the receivers had a special rating, I believe. And so you took I can't remember how it worked. You took the receivers with their special rating times however many receivers were, divided it, and so it came out with this arm rating, which aligned with our findings. So, when you've played 1,000 times, what these guys are capable of, and so these ratings kind of paired out accurately with our observations. So I'd have to.
So these are basically you guys just observed and give a relative rating to another player. Am I understanding that correctly?
Say that again, please.
So you guys kind of made it your own scale then, and just disseminated that information based on where those players fell on that scale with that particular, let's say, like agility or pass control or like a passing speed or okay,
yeah,
that kind of thing.
Like I said, there was in the ROM, Cam had found the special.
Oh, there actually is code. Okay, there is.
Yeah,
code
so it's code.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just I don't believe there was an actual attribute in the code for the arm, but if you did the equation with the receivers with their special rating and how many there were, it gave you a definitive rating for the arm strength or whatever. So I'm probably not explaining that as well as it needs to be, but that's how Cam.
But it's based off something in the game that you just can't see without getting into the code, essentially.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now
do you have the attributes for all the players in Tecmo Bowl? Is that correct, or you just have some?
Yes, we have all of the offense, defense, special teams, offensive linemen. Some have different blocking power. So we have pretty much everything that's necessary.
And this is on your website then? The Tecmo
versus
RBI?
File. I believe I lost a file or accidentally deleted. I need to put this rating sheet back up, so I'm looking at it right now. I need to throw it on there.
I think that'd be a great resource for anyone who'd be interested in trying out a Tecmo Bowl tournament or RBI Baseball if you have something similar, which I know that some of those ratings are a little more available right at the surface, but at least with the pitches and stuff like that. But but I think for Tecmo Bowl, I had a lot of us that play like, okay, we look at the stats and who we knew from our childhood. Like obviously, LT is going to be a beast, but people don't know that Fred Young was pretty good in that game too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know the ratings for RBI are on the site because I have the batting lineup page and the pitching staff pages. So those are all broken down in great detail. So I think I only had it like a spreadsheet on the site, and I'm not. Something happened and it's off there right now.
So who do we got for the top 2 running backs in that game?
Bo Jackson is by himself with a max speed rating of 11. So he's clearly the fastest. Although they did an interesting thing. They nerfed him a little bit on his initial speed. So right when he gets the ball, he's a little bit slower than other backs. And his acceleration to his top speed is a little bit slower than the other backs. So top speed, he's the fastest on the game, but they made it so his first couple steps are a little slower than everyone else. And then you have Walter Payton and Eric Dickerson have identical attributes in terms of speed and initial and acceleration. So considering Payton and Dickerson have 2 run plays and they go out in a pass pattern on one of their plays, I really view Payton and Dickerson as the best 2 running backs just because of the usage that they get.
Okay. That makes sense. I don't know how it is that Bo Jackson came away in both these games as the fastest running back.
I have a theory is that I've done a lot of research on the rosters of Tecmo Bowl, and for the most part, they were derived from the 1987 season. And I've looked at ProFootballReference.com has historical starting lineups for these teams. And so the Colts, for instance, the Cowboys, for example, those teams' starting defenses match up with Tecmo Bowl perfectly. So what I think happened is that the Japanese programmers who watched the NFL back at that time in '87, maybe their first exposure to Bo Jackson was that Monday Night Football game against Seattle. They probably already also knew he was a two-sport athlete. So that's my theory, is they were just enamored by his athletic abilities, and so they made him the best running back on the game.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then, as you know, 88, 89, 90, those years, he really didn't do anything to dispel that idea. So, it makes sense that they would have kept him as so good in Tecmo Super Bowl as well.
Right. Who do we got for receivers?
Jerry Rice is the fastest receiver with a max of 10. Similar to Bo Jackson, they did nerf him a little bit as an initial, but the thing with receivers is the receiver speed in Tecmo Bowl isn't that important. The running backs are really the game breakers, and whether or not your quarterback can rifle it in there. So, because truth be told, in Tecmo Bowl, most of the receivers, like 95% of them, are pretty average or below. So Jerry Rice was the top. Gary Clark with Washington was a 9-speed. And from there, everyone else is 8s, 7s, all the way down to 6s. So, they didn't really have many standout receivers in Tecmo Bowl.
So it's more about the run game.
Yeah, correct.
And then who's the top 2 defenders in Tecmo Bowl?
Well, obviously, Lawrence Taylor with an 18 speed as the best linebacker, and Ronnie Lott is clearly the best defensive back on the game. So it's Lott and LT without a doubt.
Lott and LT.
Mm-hmm.
You heard it here.
There's a lot of guys that, based on their position or their usage or things like that are as effective as those two. Like Carl Banks, in my opinion, is equally as effective as LT based on his position at the top outside linebacker. So while Banks is a step slower than LT, he's virtually just as good.
All right. So before we get into talking about your tournament, I want to ask you one question about RBI Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
In your opinion, what is it about RBI Baseball that makes it a superior choice for a tournament over any other NES baseball game?
I think Baseball Stars has a pretty good pitcher-batter interface, but I think RBI's pitcher-batter interface is the best of all the games from that era. I feel like you can just see the ball coming in frame by frame, even if it's Nolan Ryan's heater. But I like that better than any other baseball game. And then you have the aspect of the pro players that were involved, and I also like the fielding in RBI. Some people think it's difficult to field, but with a little practice, you get the angles down. It's easy to field. Just the gameplay in general is really fluid as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think the fielding in RBI is pretty good compared to some of the other Nintendo games because it gives you a more zoomed out view to actually see where you need to be to catch the ball. There's a lot of baseball games on the Nintendo where it's just too close. And it's not just the Nintendo. This is Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo. As soon as the ball's hit, you have a small view of the fielders, and it's hard to make a play on the ball. But RBI is not one of those games.
Baseball Stars does that, where they zoom in on the ball, and I think they somewhat help aid you. The CPU helps aid you in positioning your defender, so it's not that hard to play defense. But that camera angle really bugs me, so I prefer the zoomed out, like you said.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, so let's talk about this tournament that's happening March 24th in your hometown, right? Omaha, Nebraska?
Yes. We're going to do a doubleheader as usual, and Tecmo Bowl at noon, RBI Baseball at 6 p.m. We only charge $15 to enter per tournament. You can get into both for $25.
That's a good value.
Yeah, and we try to keep it low just so we can get the inexperienced people to come out. That's kind of our goal, is to get them involved with the group play, get them out for 4 games. We have an Air Force, military Air Force base here, so if you're with a military ID, you can get in $5 off either price of there. So we encourage them to come out for a little discounted fee there. So standard deal, you have group play which is 3 games. The results from that then are calculated, and they help us seed the tournament going forward. Top 5 guys will win cash, and first place gets a trophy.
I have a question from the chat for you from King of 94. They want me to ask you if you've ever lost to someone in the 9th inning to a Mookie Wilson solo home run.
Geez.
Maybe you could break out the context of that, because I'm not an RBI guy, so maybe you could tell us why that would be I'm guessing that must be a rare occurrence.
I might have hit a home run with Mookie late to win a game. Mookie's not very powerful, so it's rare for him to go yard, but I actually like Mookie a lot. Lefty with a little bit of speed to him, so I don't think he's ever beat me with a homer, but he's okay.
Brad, I saw you showing off that trophy on Facebook or somewhere. Do you have it next to you?
I do. So we have this guy here, shiny.
That's
I still
excellent.
gotta get a nameplate for it, so I'll go to the trophy shop here soon and get it on there. And so it's nice and shiny, cool item.
How much does that weigh?
Actually, it's really light. It's I'm not really sure what kind of metal it's made out of, but I don't think it even weighs a pound. It looks heavier than it actually is.
So where can people sign up for the tournament? And then, excuse me if you already said this, but where exactly is the tournament at? What bar?
It's at a place called Big Way Burger on 72nd Street here in Omaha. It's by 72nd and Q. As for signing up, we just collect fees the day of. We don't actually collect fees ahead of time. So the best way to keep in touch with us is to go to Facebook, do a search for Omaha Tecmo Bowl Tournament, and you'll find our event page there. You can mark yourself as going or interested. And when you do that, you get updates as the tournament gets closer to being held, and reminders, stuff like that.
Any live streams this year that so the those of us that can't make it can still stay connected to the live action?
You and I need to get together on a Friday night and set up my Elgato. I got that a while back and just haven't had a lot of time to mess with it. So I have an old business.
My magic with the computers.
Yes.
Get going.
I do have I get refurbished laptops from my father-in-law, who's the IT guy at the hospital. So I get pretty good laptops. So I think they could stream okay with that. So it's just a matter of getting it all set up.
Definitely can help with that.
Okay, good. Some Friday night, man. We'll do it.
There you go.
The next question I have, I think, is a big interest to me, Troy, and the rest of the retro gaming community. Is it's to my understanding that you're going into this tournament using HD TVs with the HD NES clone consoles. So what consoles are you using, and what was the decision? What was the thinking behind making that decision?
We're going to be using I have a couple retro USB AVS systems, and I have some buddies with a couple more, so I probably have access to about 4 of those. So those are the ideal system. I got a really good deal on the Hyperkin HDMI NESs on newegg.com. It was a ridiculous price. So I just picked up, I think it was 5 or 6 of them or whatever. So just based on price, and I like their product, it's good enough. But I will be using probably 4 original Nintendos as well. So we're going to probably do a mix of 4 and 4 with the different equipment.
And I can speak to the the differences between Tecmo Super Bowl and Tecmo Bowl. Tecmo Bowl does not have anywhere near the issues as far as like JJ timings and things like that you have to be able to put out that would really be thrown off by the differences in the latency with a digital to analog type of conversion. When you're talking about Tecmo Bowl, I mean, it's you hit your tap, throw the guy you want, and there it goes. And it's either going to be completed or intercepted usually. So you don't the kicking game is the only thing that would be effective, and it's a lot more forgiving than Tecmo Super Bowl. Like if you're 1 frame off, you're kicking an onside kick instead of a full power. It's a lot more brutal in TSP than versus just Tecmo Bowl.
And yeah, I agree with you on that, because I know like we talked about that, and I said outside of a field goal kicking, there really isn't any concern for lag with the original Tecmo Bowl, and that's really wise because you don't run into those instances in Tecmo Super where you have to hit the JJ pass just right and things like that. So hopefully, I've played enough on the Hyperkin in Tecmo Bowl that I really haven't had any issues. So I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, and the retro AVS doesn't really have much lag, if any at all. Is that right?
As far as I can tell, it doesn't. Again, Troy might notice with Tecmo Super or something, but based on what I've read,
based on the display that you have, it's really more about the individual HD TV at that point. The chips for the FPGA on those it's hardware simulation with no conversion from analog. If you take original Nintendo and you go to an HD TV, it has to scale the composite signal. So that does introduce some lag. And then the Hyperkin itself scales internally, so there's some lag from that. That being said, again, unless you have a really slow, really old HD TV, it's really not an issue for Tecmo Bowl specifically.
We're gonna run it so that the AVS systems will be exclusively. They will be once we get to the quarterfinals. So once you hit the final 8, from there on out, everyone will be playing on the AVS. Just so we feel that's the best system, the best unit.
I want one of those so bad. I'm like, either that or I gotta get like a modded NES for RGB, one of the two. But I've been jonesing. In fact, I just got these SCART cables for a Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. So we're going full RGB on our 16-bit systems through component onto the image quality is unbelievable for retro experience while maintaining the CRT look. And the problem is you got to get someone to modify an NES, but an AVS for what they get for those, for about $185. I mean, right to the HD, no fuss. What a great system. And the 4 controller ports in case you ever want to play like the 3 games that support it,
Mm-hmm.
So is the bar going to supply the HD TVs then, or you just got to bring in a few, or how's that going to work out?
I have a lot, so I kind of scoured Craigslist over the years and if you kind of look around for a while, you'll find some good deals on 24-inch TVs and stuff like that. Get them for $20 or $30. So my garage is full of old kind of 2008-ish HD TVs.
Nice. This question's kind of just to educate the community overall. Like, who are some of the top both Tecmo Bowl players and RBI players that are expected to be at the tournament?
I'll be there. A buddy of mine from Central Iowa,
Nate Mertz.
Nate Mertz. He's been actually I played him in Houston in the championship game, and he's finished maybe 3rd and 4th place in some other tournaments. So he's always up there. A guy that got 3rd place in 2016 here in Omaha, he'll be there. There's a sports radio talk show host from Alabama. Him and his co-host might be driving up. His name's Cole Kubelik, and he does events for charity down there. So like if you can beat him at Tecmo Bowl, you know, you might win a Curve TV or something. So that's the lure to come out. And he does it for like charities and stuff like that. And I don't think he's played like a gajillion people and never lost. So hopefully he'll be up to play, and we'll get to see what his game looks like. As for RBI, we had Mike Beals come over from Chicago last year, and Mike put on the semi-annual Championship of the Universe tournament for RBI. And so he's always, you know, one of the top guys there. He actually got third at our tournament. Let's see. There's a couple buddies of mine in Columbus, Ohio, which they won't be at this RBI tournament, but Joe Cordiano, he lost in the championship of the Cotut, I think like 5 times in a row. So he always gets there. He just can't get it done in the final series. So if I had to pinpoint one guy that might be the best in the world, it's a guy that's Joe.
So, in your opinion, between the two tournaments, which tournament has the best shot of some random just showing up and taking the whole thing?
I would say RBI. The thing with RBI is if you kind of have the natural born pitching ability, or you have the eye for batting, if you put those two things together, you don't need to know a lot about pitcher ratings. You can just come in and dominate with your physical skills. And so a guy by the name of Victor, he won our RBI tournament last year, didn't lose a single game, and probably shut out most everyone he played. So and that's kind of the difference between RBI and original Tecmo, is we're at the point now where you have to know a lot about defense and just so many technical aspects of Tecmo Bowl probably to beat us, or you're just going to have to pick our play a lot. As to our RBI, if you just have that particular pitching skill, you can come in and dominate.
So can you explain the rule that you guys have? If I understand correctly, there's when your play is picked, what you're allowed to do in that situation as the offensive team.
Okay, offensively, we just have a rule that you can't gain yards when the defense picks your play. So like in a passing situation, I just try to get my quarterback back to the line of scrimmage, or the running back to the line of scrimmage is basically it. So Tecmo had those glitches, some cheat routes, which people could exploit, like the slant to Cap Bozo, the slant to Roger Craig, stuff like that. So stuff I've learned how to intercept, but maybe the less inexperienced player probably doesn't know the position to get in for those.
That's an interesting rule. I didn't know about that.
And I've been to a lot of tournaments and nobody's really exploited it. And I played a guy that broke it out a few times in the fourth quarter, in the tight game, but he did it in a respectful manner, in the sense that like he wasn't doing it every fourth down, So I guess my thought is that somebody, if they wanted to be a real jerk, could be New York and call the Bavaro curl route, which is, unstoppable completely, every time it was third down, for example. So if you really didn't want to lose in Tecmo Bowl, there'd be a way to do it.
So let me get this right. So whether you call the play on the defensive end exactly, or you don't call the play, there's no way to stop a specific curl route?
The curls, I've yet to come up with a way to intercept the Mark Bavaro curl route. What happens is I don't know if it has to do with the AI or something, but as you try to get your defender in position, the game kind of swings you around to the top, the bottom. It won't let you get in position. So it's probably a programming issue of some sort. For lack of a better term, or expression or whatever, like basically you could complete that pass all the time as long as you timed it right and Bavaro got to a certain point in his curl. So
okay, so if you don't time it right, though, they can mess it up.
Yeah, technically yes, you could. So
okay, Well, cool. Is there anything else you want to say about the tournament before we move on to some discussion topics?
If anybody's interested in coming out playing, like I kind of touched upon if people, I get the sense that people are interested, or they say, "Oh, this sounds cool. I'd like to play," but there's always the caveat, and I think people's level of inexperience or not playing in many years dissuades them from playing, and so. I can't, emphasize enough with group play. You're going to come out, you're going to get the experience of playing multiple games with different teams, against different people. So you're going to be there a couple hours. You're definitely going to get your entries fee worth of entertainment.
Yeah.
And I imagine there's probably some pickup games before and after that take place.
Yeah, I encourage people to come out, half hour before the tournament starts. Everything's set up and ready to go, and just come out and get, a warm up game. And, I've told people, if you do that, you play your 3 group play games, and then you play in the first round of the tournament. I mean, there's 5 games there within a 2.5 hour span or whatever. So plenty of Tecmo and RBI to be played.
Yeah, I think it's great that you're doing both tournaments. Both of the games are probably top of the line for that era, like the 1988, 1989. So, if you like those games at that time and you think you got some skills, show up to Omaha, especially if you're in the middle of the country. So let's move on to some discussion topics. And these are for everyone, but I'm going to start with Troy. Troy, maybe you're not a baseball aficionado, but what other retro baseball games besides RBI Baseball would you say are deserving of a live tournament?
That's a tough one. I guess just NES.
No, I'm just saying any retro baseball game.
If I remember, RBI came out on the Sega Genesis, and I thought that wasn't too bad of a version of that game, especially if you have a tournament that features other games like NHL '94, NBA Jam, those types of things that find themselves on there. I think having a baseball game on there like RBI Baseball would be a nice kind of rounded way for a retro sports weekend. Outside of RBI Baseball, which I didn't play a ton of because I was frankly terrible at that and every other baseball game out there, I got some time on Bases Loaded, the one where you're actually looking at your batter from the pitcher's perspective. And I thought that was kind of fun. I thought the presentation was kind of neat on that. It was a different idea versus the traditional kind of NES baseball themed perspective that we all kind of saw that evolved and RBI Baseball ended up with. But outside of that, RBI Baseball in the Sega Genesis version is about the only one I ever really got my hands on.
I got a couple from the chat. King of 94 says, Ken Griffey presents MLB on the Super Nintendo and Extra Innings on the Super Nintendo. Either of you guys familiar with those games?
I did play some Ken Griffey. I'm not familiar with the other one. I don't remember a lot about Ken Griffey. Unfortunately, I played Tecmo and RBI. So
I played a lot of the Ken Griffey Winning Run. That was a later game on the Super Nintendo. I think it came out in 1996, made by Rare. I had a lot of fun with that one. It only had Ken Griffey's the only MLB player in the game, but it did have all the teams. And all the teams had a parody of kind of the player that should have been there. Like the White Sox had Big Magoo for Frank Thomas. It was a fun game, but the fielding on that one, it was off. Like you could throw a guy out from the outfield on a grounder. And it was really hard to get extra bases. So I wouldn't recommend that one. The one that King of 94 is talking about, I haven't played it too much, so I can't say for sure. But Brad, what do you think? Is there any other baseball games worthy of a live tournament?
Maybe Baseball Stars, but I guess the lure of Baseball Stars is the kind of like the GM aspect, and as you win, you gain money, so you can improve your player stats. And so I think that was the attraction of the game, and our Baseball Stars also had like the schedule and the stats it kept. So, but to me, Baseball Stars was more interesting in one player setting. Bases Loaded. What stunk about Bases Loaded is it was almost impossible to strike anyone out. And so it was, when you'd play these 2-player games, they would take like 45 minutes and everybody's scoring like 15, 16 runs. So it was just like a batting free-for-all. A game I vaguely remember, which might be a decent option, was like, I think it was called Little League Baseball, Little League World Series. It had like the rabbit as the umpire. I remember that as an okay game. I don't remember it in the 2-player setting. So
I think you might be talking about Bad News Baseball, and that's what King 94 is saying in the chat. That game is also a Tecmo game, and that was one of the games I was actually going to talk about. Is that one's really similar to RBI from what I've played from it so far. Just the gameplay, it has like the zoomed out view for the fielding. The hitting's very similar. That would go perfect with one of the Tecmo tournaments, I think, even yours or a Tecmo Super Bowl one. I'm thinking a little bit later though, as far as baseball games, on the like GameCube, PS2, Xbox era. There's a game made by Midway that also made like NFL Blitz, NBA Jam. It's called MLB Slugfest. And there's multiple years of it. That game is a lot of fun. It's arcade-style gameplay. It never came out in the arcades because they didn't start doing baseball till later. I think that would be a fun one for sure. Maybe not for, the people that would be going to a Tecmo Bowl or RBI tournament, but that one I think that would be a fun tournament for sure. Looking at some of like PlayStation N64 era games, they don't age as well. I played a lot of Triple Play 98 back in the day, and it's not one that I particularly like to go back to. So, but those are the two that I would say. One of the MLB Slugfest games and Bad News Baseball. And then I agree with you, Brad, that Baseball Stars is a good game, but the draw to it's more like the one player play through and get your money, learn about capitalism type of thing.
Yeah. Do you guys remember Baseball Simulator? Was it 1000? I think it came out probably around 1988. The only feature I remember was there was different parks, and I think they had different dimensions. So from a 2-player standpoint, maybe I don't remember a lot about the game, but just having the different sized parks to play in, maybe you could choose the park that's tailored to your team for an advantage. So, that would be a cool aspect in the game.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. I haven't played much of it though, so I couldn't recommend it for a live tournament, but it looks like a cool game. All right, so I got one more question for a discussion topic. And this one is, looking at a Tecmo Bowl series as a whole, which new game release made you lose interest in the Tecmo Bowl series? When did the series start to go downhill, and what other football game series picked up your interest, if any? So we'll start with Troy.
So the last, I guess after the 16-bit series was over, I never even picked up the PlayStation version of Tecmo Bowl, Tecmo Super Bowl, whatever they named it then. I heard it's not good. That's the kind description of it. But I like Tecmo Super Bowl 3 more than the other 16-bit versions, although I do give some credit on the Genesis version. I do like how you can hit a different button and it reverses the cycling of the passing tree. Normally you have to hit, once you hit A, it goes down, 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 down. It goes back to the top. In Genesis, you hit a different button, it actually can go back up. So it makes it interesting when you're trying to juke out the man defender, trying to find a receiver. But those original Tecmo Bowls are essentially 16-bit ports that the same tricks don't work. So it has the NES version. So while I consider them playable, if I'm going to play 16-bit Tecmo Bowl, I'm going to try to bring out the 3rd edition. I think that's the one that brings the most console generation relevant features, more plays, the deeper stuff that you got from the Maddens of the world and its competitors at that time, where you can do the full seasons and everything, just like the original Tecmo Super Bowl could do. So after that, started playing Madden games. I was never really satisfied, though. I even got into a PC version of I don't remember if it was a Monday Night Football game or it was something that Al Michaels narrated. I can't remember the name of it, but you could create plays with the game. You could do some pretty crazy stuff. You're trying to trick the computer, reverses, all the stuff that you couldn't do on a console, like creating a play, like maybe you can do today, but back then you couldn't. You can only do that kind of stuff on computer. So I actually kind of transitioned out of once PlayStation came out. I think I played Game Day in '98, but I was kind of sick of. I felt like they were trying to go to simulation, and I didn't think they were doing a very good job back then. I thought, and if you go back, there aren't too many games that are worth playing football-wise, other than maybe like Blitz.
Yeah, NFL Blitz, more arcade style.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What about you, Brad?
I'm with Troy. The Tecmo Super Bowl 3 was pretty much the last title I played, and I really enjoyed that back around the time it came out. For whatever reason, I didn't really stick with it, but I really liked the ESPN, the 2K series of football. I really got into that for a while. And once that went by the wayside with the player licensing, that was kind of the end. For whatever reason, I remember liking that far more than Madden. And so once that went by the wayside, that was kind of the end of my football days.
Did you play that on the Dreamcast at all? That was kind of when I got back into football games.
I had a Dreamcast, but I don't believe so. I think it must have been PS1 or by that time PS2, perhaps.
Randy Moss was the Bo Jackson of that series. Just chuck it to Randy.
Yeah, it was the cover athlete of the game.
Yep.
And
was there any curse with the ESPN cover athletes at all, like Madden?
I don't think they had enough games for it to matter.
Yeah, they only had just a couple releases. So
at least on that platform, I know that there's a community that really still embraces, I think, 2K5, if memory serves. I think that might have been the last year that they made that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you guys both mentioned Tecmo Super Bowl 3. There's a group of guys that get together. It's called the No Frills Tough Guy League. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but they get together and they play a series of that. I've watched some of their streams. They're just all hanging out, looks like in a basement and having a good time. They're a little bit more tame than the Sega-thon crowd, I must say.
All right, we'll have to. Is that up on TecmoSuperBowl.org? Can I find that stuff? Or
I think on TecmoBowl.org they do have a few.
They have a Facebook page. We should get that link out.
Yeah, I'll put the link to their Twitch or something in this video when we're done with it. But yeah, just to answer the question that I asked you guys, I wasn't aware of anything after Tecmo Super Bowl on NES, Genesis, and Super Nintendo. I didn't even know there was a 2 and a 3 until later on. My cousins did have Tecmo Super Bowl on the PlayStation, and I just thought that was awful. By that time, I was already playing some Madden on the Super Nintendo, and then, as Troy said, Game Day took my interest on PlayStation. I thought the Game Day series was much better than Madden during like the N64 and PlayStation era. And then once the PS2 hit, Madden just kind of took over again. It looked so much better than Game Day or what everything else was out there, except the 2K series was still really good on the Dreamcast, but I didn't have a Dreamcast, so I couldn't play that. Loved Madden 2003. I think that was the first one that went online. Had a blast playing that. The soundtrack was great in that game as well. And then I lost interest completely in the Madden series and simulation games with once they implemented the QB vision. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but they forced a QB vision.
Yes, you had to look at your receiver, and like Brett Favre had a really good vision, but like Michael Vick had terrible. If you weren't looking at your receiver, the pass was very unlikely to be completed.
Yeah, so that I didn't mind it as a feature, but it being forced in online play, I was done. I wasn't trying to play that competitively anymore. And then ever since, that's pretty much where I stopped playing those games and went back to the retro stuff. I also did enjoy like the ESPN series as well, especially the presentation within that game. But then, they lost the license. EA took over, and the rest is history. And we're still in that tornado, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, so we're supposed to talk about Sega-thon 2018. Nick the commish was going to break that down. Me and Troy did get to view a little bit of that stream, I know. So Troy, do you want to talk about a little bit about what you saw on the stream?
I'm not entirely certain what I saw. I saw a Hillary Clinton mask and a dude, and then I didn't see this, but it was reported to me that some pants were removed at some point. So alcohol was certainly doing what its reputation does. So I know they were watching movies like Point Break in the midst of it. There's a lot of yelling, wailing, gnashing of teeth. I'm sure he's nursing a pretty big hangover today. And with the little ones that Sega-thon has, he's probably paying the price today. But I don't know who ended up winning. I know that he was having troubles with the stream. At times, you could tell what was going on, at least in the gameplay. But you didn't know who was playing and why they were playing and what the bracket situation was. And frankly, I'm not even sure the people that were there knew what they were doing and why they were there either. After 8 hours of intoxication. So I'm looking forward to some sort of recap. This might be lost in the annals of WTF. I don't know, but we'll see what he has to say later on. But he's not here to speak for himself. But I couldn't tell what was going on. I know there are a couple Tecmo guys that were there. Was QB Browns and like Sammy Smith 33 there? I thought I saw those guys in attendance.
I think he was there, and John QB Browns. I think they were there.
Okay, so
I couldn't really make it out, but just from what I saw in the chat, I think those two guys were there.
Okay.
A few Tecmo guys, few crossovers. And for those of you that don't know, Sega-thon is actually an NHL 95 tournament. He's the only one that I know for sure that's throwing big NHL 95 tournaments these days. I think it's more of like a invitation event, more so than something that's advertised. I think Nick is maybe looking to bring it out to the bar scene and see what's going on. But we'll see. The stream was quite interesting. Like Troy said, it was hard to tell what was going on. We knew they were having a good time. And if you were just listening to the audio, you can get some laughs out of it for sure. But they weren't really updating on who was playing who. They didn't have it on the stream. And at one point, Nick got the mic going on the stream, and he was all excited about that. But when we're actually chatting to him, instead of like just speaking into the microphone, he's chatting back. He's typing back to us, and it wasn't very legible, to say the least. So it was interesting. I had a good time watching. Like Troy said, there was someone who got the pants on camera on the stream later in the evening. So
you made it classy there in Minnesota.
Yeah. But yeah, it looked like they had a good time, and hopefully we could talk to Nick about that in the future to get a full recap. He put out a tweet earlier today saying, some guys played the wrong matchups, the whole bracket's ruined or something like that. So I don't even know if they got a winner out of it or not. But yeah, so there is different variations of tournaments across the board of retro sports games, and the NHL 95 is its own brand for sure. Nick's Sega-thon. So
you got to appreciate that at least the guys are. I mean, I don't care what the game is. I mean, if it's something that hit that nostalgia spark and it's enough to get a bunch of men together to just hang out and have a good time. I mean, if you want to play competitive duck hunt, go for it. I mean, whatever.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it looked like they're having a great time, and that's what it's about. You know, I'm sure there's a good percentage of guys there who aren't necessarily caring about winning the NHL '95 tournament. It's not like NHL '94 where it's a little bit more established crowd and there's a little bit more competitiveness at the top. I don't know if they have the same thing in the NHL '95. So I guess we can find that out in the future.
Sounds like as promoter of my tournaments, it's a good deal that I usually don't start drinking until we get to about the final 8. So that way the brackets are run correctly and everything. So it's like, we got about an hour and a half left. I can start boozing now.
Yeah, you never know when you're going into a new tournament how it's going to be run. So it's kind of important to know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
So you go ahead, Brad.
Since Troy and I throw on a lot of tournaments, I thought maybe we could just quickly throw out like people that are interested in running tournaments. You know, maybe Troy could give some tips or pointers on how to run them, how to find the people, et cetera, et cetera. Like what's your main takeaway? What's your main thing that you need to do to run a successful tournament and to get people to come out?
Well, I would say first off, run something that you like. If you're an organizer, don't just find something that's maybe popular just because it's popular. Because I think right away people maybe see something as a potential money grab. And by the way, unless you've got some investor throwing a bunch of money, this is not something that you do to make money. This is something that you do because you love it and you want to see it grow. And I think that sometimes people will say, oh, look at all these bodies. There must be some revenue behind it. Unless you're the guy winning all of it. And even then, I mean, the amount of time to promote it that it takes and the energy, it's not. And I'm not even good enough to win my own stuff most of the time. So I would say what you really got to just have a passion for a specific game and then research and find out, hey, are there people out there playing it? Are there any other tournaments out there? What are those formats? What are the rule sets? Like one of the things I learned was, and I always kind of wondered about this, but lurching was a major issue in Tecmo Super Bowl. And it's any real major tournament has that. You can't do it. That's just something that they do. So you have to kind of learn what the status quo is. So if you want to attract players in your area, as well as from outside of your area, kind of something that they're already kind of accustomed to. Secondly, know what type of equipment they're using. So what kind of consoles are being used, what kind of displays or technology is being used. Is a stream something you want to be able to do? You want to be able to document that. You got to figure out venue. So do you want to, look, is this a family friendly thing? Is it just adults? If it's just adults, do you want alcohol and food to be available? How much space, how much power, how good is the internet? Going back to the stream thing, there's kind of a checklist that you have to go through. And I could probably talk about this for a long time, but what I tell people is try to find a venue partner that's willing to help you market it. So yes, if it's a bar, if they're not going to go out of their way to help bring bodies in, now ultimately you're still really the main promoter of it, but hey, they should be able to help put some specials out there on their Facebook page. They should have some social media. They should have people already coming in there. They're like, hey, come check this out. Hey, yeah, come be a part of this. You get some drink specials. You're going to be here on this night anyway because you come in here with your buds. Come play some Tecmo Bowl. And we've done that before at some past venues where we had walk-ins the day of that had no idea a tournament was going on. December 2016, I think we had 6 or 7 walk-ins on a tournament. We ended up with better part of 30 people playing on a Thursday night just because of the timing of the end of the year and everything. So you just find a venue that treats you good, wants you back, and make sure that they treat the people good when they come in. And so I could go about this. This is like a whole nother show, honestly, how to run successful video game tournaments. But you have to do your research. I don't think it's a matter of buying 2 $20 consoles from the local store and setting something up and saying, okay, world, here we are. You got to do some work.
Oh,
and I think both of you guys, having run tournaments, know exactly what that looks like.
Yeah.
I've found people really like the idea of retro gaming and retro gaming tournaments, but for them to actually come out, it's a different story. So yeah, I agree. You know, you need a really strong marketing campaign. And so it's taken me a couple of years just to build up my Facebook page. So there's a lot of interest in our tournament here in Omaha, and I haven't had to spend a dime marketing it yet, which I will here in a couple of weeks around Omaha. But it's taken a long time to build up the Facebook page to the point where I can just throw something on the internet and it immediately gets instant reaction. So I can also echo the bar thing. I've been to some places where they were really well-established bars, so they really didn't care if our tournament had 5 people or if it had 20. So so it helps if you have a bar that's interested in backing you and is just going to give you whatever assistance you can get to bring in some more people. So
on that note, we moved our tournament out of the bar scene into the arcade scene. After seeing the success of Tecmo Cleveland, they were kind of just in like I believe someone's basement or someone's house or something, and they moved out into the public and they partnered with an actual arcade with a bunch of retro machines, and they had an incredible turnout last time. And I think that you got to find something that appeals to more than just the top players, because if you want to, I guess I don't want to call them feeders, but ultimately in the grand scheme, that's what the lower tier players, lower skill players end up being to the pot at the top. You got to give them a reason to come out besides just, well, we have some video games here, because they can do that anywhere. But if you make the overall experience for every person better, then I think then you have a better chance of growing that. And it's not just favoring the people at the top. So, but diversifying, is another great way. So we went with the Edge VR arcade for our NHL. Tecmo, they went with classic arcade. Whatever it is, find your niche. Find something that sets you apart from other people that are doing that.
Yeah, great question, Brad.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in the same boat with Troy. Like I could talk for an hour sharing my experiences, and
we probably will after this is done.
Yeah, what to do, what not to do. I've seen a lot of. I'll kind of look on Facebook every now and then. I'll type in for Tecmo World tournaments, and I'll see certain bars or whatever. They throw it up on Facebook like a week of the tournament. And then I find out they had like 4 people show up, and so it kind of discourages them from throwing another one. But you really have to get out there early, and you really have to work to find the people to come out.
And that's another thing, like the amount of time. We kind of started planning our NHL tournament back in October. When did you start the kind of the preparations for this one?
Oh, back in December. I was really actively hunting for a venue. Maybe early to mid-December. So I got out way ahead of it. And, because the place I was at last year, our tournament's going to be during the NCAA tournament. And so they didn't want to host us because they wanted their back room to be filled with, people there to watch basketball. So they kind of basically denied us, and so I had to scramble to find a new place. So it wasn't a big issue, but I feel really happy to partner up with the place I am now. So
yeah, and going back to what you were saying, Brad, about some of these places just throwing stuff out there. I think there was even an arcade around the Chicago area that threw out a Tecmo Bowl tournament like a week or 2 weeks in advance. But there's an NBA Jam tournament out there tomorrow for who's ever listening at Emporium. It's on the arcade, Emporium Logan Square. And, I actually inquired about it because I was interested in playing with it. And I think my brother would be willing to play. I talked to him about it. But it's like I don't know what the format is. They really couldn't tell me what the prizes were. They're like, oh, we got some bar swag, this and that. It would be good to show up. And and try it out and see how it is. But it's like I have no idea what I'm getting myself into. It could just be a one and done situation, and then that's it. So, you know, I don't think I'm gonna make my wife mad about going to this tournament on a Monday night. So
Yeah.
I'll probably skip it.
Yeah, and on any postings I make or on the event, I try to be really specific, you know, like your 3 games the opening round before the tournament, and I try to break down all the particulars and just kind of quick hitter points so people can at least have an idea of what they're getting involved with. So that's a good point to bring up.
Yeah.
Another thing you can do too is, you know, we obviously get on podcasts like this one, network with other people in the community they're doing things retro related, because there's a lot of cross interest, a lot of people that have the ability to travel around the country. A lot of people that played Tecmo, played RBI Baseball, played NBA Jam, played NHL 94, heck, played Street Fighter, played Mortal Kombat. I mean, those things branch off. And so eventually you're going to get enough shares between everyone's social media and just being familiar with one another. You're going to find someone that's interested in someone else's tournament. You do enough of that, you're going to snake some players.
And just to close this topic out, King of 94 says, the more months you give in advance, the bigger the impact, since people are willing to travel that love those games a lot. All right. So real quick, Troy, there was a tournament today or yesterday in New York at an expo. There was a few retro gaming tournaments there. I know one of them was NFL Blitz. And there was an NHL 94 tournament and maybe something else. Do you know who won any of those tournaments?
I could speak specifically on the NHL 94 tournament, and I'm only paraphrasing here what was said to me by those that were there. So the tournament was originally advertised as a Sega Genesis tournament, ended up being Super Nintendo. For those of you that don't know, they're completely different versions of the game developed by completely different companies. It's like it might as well be different years. They're completely different products. So as a result, when some people found that out, they dropped out of the Super Nintendo tournament, or the tournament, because it was Super Nintendo. The individual that ended up winning was Kevin Corbett, KB. He's actually coming to Green Bay this Saturday, so he'll be participating in that. But he's one of the better NHL 94 Sega Genesis players out there, and he actually took it, and he said that there really wasn't much competition. He said he played something like 3 games, and then he was in a championship series. So it was single elimination. There weren't any brackets. There was no streaming, and he wasn't particularly satisfied with the way that all worked itself out, even though he won it. He thought that everyone that was involved to play was disappointed that it wasn't as advertised, which is unfortunate. But the winner was Kevin Corbett, KB, and if anything, he needed the Super Nintendo practice because he's a Sega Genesis guy, and our tournament has both systems. So he was able to essentially dominate everyone that came, even though he doesn't play that version very much.
Cool. And I know there was a NFL Blitz tournament. I did see the winner. I think I recall his name was Brian Ragoose. I just think it's cool that there is tournaments out there for NFL Blitz. That's one of the games I think could definitely see a tournament scene, and I'm just glad someone's out there doing it. Not really sure how it went, but the winner, I think, took like a home $125 gift card to a retro game store that's in New York. So it was pretty cool to see.
For that game specifically, because I know there are different flavors. What platform do you think has the version that's, I guess, most widely known?
For NFL Blitz?
Yeah.
I would say it's between NFL Blitz and NFL Blitz 2000.
And is that for N64, or is that a PS game?
Well, Blitz 2000 is across the board on a bunch of different consoles. It's on N64, Dreamcast, PlayStation. You got the arcade version. I don't really count the handheld ones as being something you could play in a tournament, but because they're way different games. But the difference between NFL Blitz and NFL Blitz 2000 is NFL Blitz is really only 2 players. And NFL Blitz 2000 is when they went to 4 players. There's actually a Blitz 99 that's 4-player cabinet, but it only came out as a cabinet version. So that's the difference between the two. So if you wanted to do a 2-on-2 tournament, it would have to be on like NFL Blitz 2000.
And what version do you think would bring up the most bodies in a tournament?
It depends if people wanted to play together or, I think either one would do fine. If you're going to do a team one, it has to be Blitz 2000. If you're going 1 versus 1, it could be either version. The Blitz 2000 and NFL Blitz, one of the main differences is there's like on fire, like it's NBA Jam in Blitz 2000, whereas in NFL Blitz, they don't have that. So there's some additional features. So I would say the definitive version of Blitz is NFL Blitz 2000, but they're both great games.
Awesome.
All right, so let's talk about some upcoming tournaments real quick before we do the group reveal for Troy's Super Nintendo NHL 94 tournament. So upcoming tournaments, on the same day as Troy's, we have on 2/24/2018 the Tom Zach Bowl 10. That's a Madison Major tournament for the Madison tournament on April 7th, and they use a tier system for their matchups, which is pretty cool. And yeah, that's going to be a Madison Major tournament. It's in Dubuque, Iowa. So that's at the end of the week. Then, of course, we already talked about it. We got Troy's tournament the same day, a flurry of goals, NHL 94. The day before, Troy's having on a Friday, like a welcoming retro gaming event, King of Tecmo. Do you want to say anything else about it, Troy?
Well, the reason we're doing King of Tecmo, we have a lot of people coming in from out of the area, more than any tournament we've ever run. And frankly, those folks want something to do. They want to get the rust off. They want to play some Sega Genesis, some Super Nintendo, get some 2v2 games on. And then we already have to go through all the effort of setting up the tables, the chairs, the power, the CRTs. Hooking up a Nintendo takes 2 minutes, right? So hooking up a bunch of those before the tournament and getting some Tecmo on just seemed like a pretty logical thing to do. So right now we have, I want to say, about a dozen guys signed up. We did lose a lot of people that would normally come to a tournament that we would host are going to Iowa, and we're not trying to compete with that in any shape or form. But for those that are staying in the general area, want to either one, they're not NHL people, or two, they just want to get some open retro because we'll be having that going on too. We're putting a $20 up. Anyone who can beat me in a console-like version of Mortal Kombat 1 or 2. I'm 16 years undefeated in that, so that all you gotta do is play me. We put it on stream so I can embarrass you in front of the internet. But it's yours if you want it. So the closest person so far, and this didn't count because it wasn't consoleized, we had a Wii Flow, and the control scheme was really messed up. I was playing on a classic controller against BJ Swagel, and he beat me a couple of times because I didn't know what buttons did what. That's the only time I've lost on those games, but that wasn't on official hardware. So I did buy him a beer, though, so I did do that. But he's going to be there, so he's going to try to take it for real. But we'll have like Street Fighter, RBI Baseball. Actually, I'll have original Tecmo Bowl there. I have ice hockey and Dr. Mario. Just a bunch of Blades of Steel, bunch of stuff there too. And then Super Nintendo and Genesis, I have various versions of Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3. Various versions of Tecmo Bowl there. So whatever you want. NBA Jam, I've got that in spades as well. So anything people want to play, that's kind of the 2-player games you played, we probably have it, and we'll be open retro actually starts at noon because that's when people started getting off their planes. The Tecmo starts at 7. So one other thing we're doing, I don't have it here in front of me, Stiga table hockey. So it's like foosball, but for hockey. Think the bubble hockey without the bubble. And we'll have one of those there too. So that's a lot of fun. I'm terrible at it, but it's a good time just wasting time. That's kind of when people are probably going to get their beer on. People are bringing in their consumables. They're going to be doing that, and then after the tournament, booze, and then after that, I got to tear down, get the Super Nintendos in place for the following morning when the tournament kicks off for all the NHL stuff. But it's really just excuse me, just a chill out night, because it gets a little more intense when you have a tournament. $10 entry. No one really cares about the end at Tecmo. They're just there to have a good time, which is what we want people to do. So
yeah. Okay. So the other tournaments we got that are coming up next month are the Godfather of Tecmo's tournament, Matt Kenobi's Lincoln, Nebraska. I screwed that up on the last one we did last month, but he's got Tecmo Lincoln 8. So maybe that's something Brad's interested. I don't know.
I've been over a couple times.
Have you?
Yeah, I'm 3-3 all time in group play. Haven't won a tournament game. Always get eliminated immediately, but I've done okay over there.
And then we have Detroit, Michigan. We talked to Odell and Thule about their tournament last month, the Kumite 6 in Detroit. I say the name wrong every time.
Just Kumite.
Kumite. I'm never going to get it right. So either I'm just going to say it wrong, or they'll have to change the name of the tournament. So it's their 6-1.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
It's just one of those words I can't say. I don't know what it is. And then, of course, we brought on Brad to talk about his tournament on March 24th. It's the Tecmo Bowl and RBI Baseball tournaments happening at what was the name of the bar again?
It's a Big Way Burger.
Big Way Burger.
You're speaking of my heart right there. By heart, I mean my stomach.
And then we got 2 really good questions from the chat just before we do this group reveal that I want to ask you guys. The first one I'll ask Brad is name the top non-all-star RBI Baseball bench player.
Geez, there's a lot of them. Tony Armas is the first guy to come to mind. He's got a ton of power. You can stick him in at leadoff with Boston.
King94 said Tony Armas in the chat.
Yeah, that's like immediately the first guy I thought of. Like, he is revered as a god in that game. So, and
then the second question I'll give Troy the same question: who's the best bench player coming off the bench in Tecmo Super Bowl?
Jim Jensen, Miami Dolphins, no doubt.
Jim Jensen?
You sub him. You sub Farrell Edmonds out. You put his ass on the bench, and you put Jim Jensen with his 69 receptions.
I would say that's
44 hitting power, and you go ahead and use him at the tight end position or the wide receiver too if you want some blocking.
I would say that's arguable. I would say 2 guys I would throw in the mix are Mel Gray on the Lions and Johnny Bailey on the Bears. Those are 2 big impact players. Maybe more so than Jensen. I know Jensen has the great receptions, but that one's arguable. But those would be 2 guys I would throw in the mix as well. All right, Troy, you ready to reveal these Super Nintendo groups?
I suppose. Let me see if I can pull up the screen here. I want to try to do a screen share if I can. That'll make it more dramatic. So application window, see if I can do this. Let's see. Can you guys see this at all?
Yep.
All right. So this should be my window here for Google Docs here. So you'll see a lot of the same names if you tuned in for our podcast reveal on our Facebook page that happened just a few days ago. Talking about Sega Genesis, but first group is Archer's Irbe, and he's goaltender for the San Jose Sharks. Angry J 93 will be leading off that group, and some familiar names will be trimming out the rest of it. So Green Magic, Matt Stanky, Tom here, and then Justin Harry. Justin Harry is a local Green Bay guy. The rest of you being part of this retro sports gaming posse. I would make that a term that people start saying, retro sports gaming posse. And you guys have your workout up for you. I think Green Magic is going to run a train on the rest of you. And then Angry J is Angry J. So he is still the favorite on SNES as well, but it's not as wide of a gap as it is on the Genesis. At least has been. There's more talent out there in the SNES version, and there are a lot more random elements that can happen that could make a SNES game closer. Any given Sunday, as they say in the NFL, well, any given Super Nintendo game of NHL 94. So Archer's Irbe. All right, so moving on, the Mike Gartner group from New York. King Raff is actually from New Jersey, but he's a Rangers fan. He'll be leading off this group with Moman. Moman is a Green Bay player. He's actually the number 2 seed in my Genesis group. Then we have Carl Klitzky from Appleton, Chewy Zweigert, who is part of the Twin Galaxies posse that's coming. So he'll be there. And then Anthony O, who was part of that promotional shoot that we did, has a pretty epic beard and hair thing going on. So he's got the whole hockey hair thing going. Moving on to the Chris. What's up?
I said Chris Chelios.
Yes. Chris Chelios, the Chicago Blackhawk.
Why did you give us Chelios for our group?
Because you don't deserve him.
We're all from Chicago. What's the problem?
Yes, but so is EA, and he's better than you. He's a lot better.
Oh,
than
yeah.
Okay. EA rocking out this one. Mike Soroka from formerly from Settle It on the Screen will be the number 2 seed. He's more of a Genesis guy, but he does have some time on the Super Nintendo. Troy Evers, also known as Enemy Fred from the Tecmo scene, will be their 3rd seed. Newcomer Ryan Murdoch and then staff member Shanky will be balancing at the bottom of this group here. So Soroka is a decent all-around video game player. EA is also a very good player, but he's better at Genesis. So that 1 versus 2 match could be interesting between those two. And then going to the Gary Suter group, this would be the group that I lead out here. Tyler Vota coming from St. Louis as our number 2 seed, so he's an online guy. Tim Porter, newcomer to the tournament, our number 3. Crested Chris from Madison, Tecmo guy, he's known as Punky QB out there to the Tecmo community online and Discord. He'll be there as well. And then my junior version, Little Trojan, will be the 5th seed. And again, he knows how to crease cut. So learn a manual goalie, guys. And then Corbett KB, he will be rounding out the Mike Madonna group at the top here. Just having won that New York tournament. And I apologize, I don't know how Mike Soroka's name got on here twice, so I did that before with another one. I'll update this one. We have Graham Tesh at 3, Josh Vandenberg, and Bacon Fan, our sponsor in this group. So I will delete this out and figure out who it wouldn't be a reveal if I didn't duplicate at least one name on the list. Mario Lemieux group, Kevin Caparello from Columbus, Ohio. He is this is our first year doing Super Nintendo, but he placed 2nd in the Genesis last year. And we did some pickup games, and it was very clear that the guy just has a way of picking up games and had played Angry Jay very close at that time. He also went to the Vegas tournament, and I did fares well down there, but he's been practicing. So our Super Nintendo groups don't go too deep at the 1 and 2 position. Coach Mack, more of a Sega guy, but will be taking the 2nd spot. Ben Gillen, Jeff Sweep, and Laura Duquette. Laura is our only female player in this tournament, and glad to have her. We usually have one at each tournament. We've been trying to. Right now it's just been a token female. We like to get more ladies of NHL 94 involved. So just a reminder to all those in the future.
Good luck.
If you can convince your lady to come with you, she plays for free. Grimmy is a happening spot, man. Lambeau Field, worth checking out. Claude Lemieux group. Oh, wait, this is the Ron Hextall group. I'm sorry. It's Ron Hextall.
Sorry, Troy. We should have the next retro sports gaming tournament at a winery, and then maybe we could get some ladies in there.
I mean, people would be like cross-checking people into bottles of wine. That would be a bad thing. So a JR33 from Canada is leading this group here, the Nordiques version of Ron Hextall. The Shield, we have the number 2 seed, Billy Duquette 3. He's the number 2 seed in one of the Genesis brackets. Neglendo, again, part of the former Twin Galaxies posse. And then Shane P will be the 5th seed. And then final group, the Bob Kudelski group. Smaz will be leading that one with Leif Erickson. Now, Leif is coming with his son Brock, who's the 5th seed. He's the one that's bringing in that custom NHL 94 arcade cabinet you might have seen floating around Twitter in NHL94.com. So he's bringing that. He's got, I don't know what he's got powering it, but it's one of the most beautiful tabletop cabinets you'll ever see with NHL 94 artwork on it. So looking forward to just having that on display and maybe getting some games in on that. In the middle here, we've got Levi L., also known as Nelson79. He's a Tecmo guy. He had a pretty epic game against One's Fazoo at the Thunder Bowl. He was the 1 and 2. He was the 2 seed in that. And then our stream announcer, Ardo Cal, is also in that group. So they'll be rounding out the Bob Kudelski group. And if I'm missing your name, I apologize. We're going to get that updated. We're hoping to get player cards put together like the Genesis one. I just didn't have enough time to get these all slapped together with the busy weekend. So which one was that? The Mike Madonna group. Yeah, we need a Mike. We need a player. If your name's missing, you're in chat, tell me right now. But we'll get that figured out. I'll get an update on our Facebook page to get that last one. So so what do you think about your group there, Tom?
Oh, I'm loving it. I'm getting to play with 2 of the guys I'm coming with, my brother and Green Magic, so it should be a lot of fun. Get to test Angry Jay, because I hear not only is he good at I know he won Vegas, but he's good at Super Nintendo as well. So I'm looking forward to taking a crack at him, and it should be a good time in that group. So I'm glad you made the group that way. It's a lot different than my my Genesis group for NHL 94. So
well, for the people that are traveling, a lot of times they do want to hang out with their buds, and to keep things balanced, that isn't always possible. The one thing that we do have going on with the growth that we've had, just to put in this perspective, last year we had 15 players, 15. We had a 16th that had to drop out last second that had paid in, and so we now have 40. The growth is so incredible. We just don't have any tournament record, and there's no database where a lot of these players have played at an NHL 94 tournament for reference. So we kind of know what the guys at the top can do, and that's kind of just everyone else. So you might have an up-and-comer. I know that Jamil, the Hammer from Vancouver, was in Vegas during the Big King of 94 tournament at a bachelor party, happened to hear about the tournament and entered kind of last minute, won the whole damn thing. So is that likely to happen at this? I would say the chances are insurmountable that will not happen. But that being said, I think the Super Nintendo version just lends itself to more. Maybe you can, like, Brad, would you say that it's more likely that someone wins a game at Tecmo based on the reduced number of plays available with play picks versus, say, Tecmo Super Bowl? If you look at the top and bottom skill.
Actually, I think it's Tecmo Super, and here's why. I beat Matt Kenobi in Lincoln in a group play game, and it was really fluky because of just a few things. And so, honestly, I think it's more likely in Tecmo Super, in my opinion. But again,
you might be right. I beat Joey Gatz in a game at Thunder Bowl, so that can't be the thing with my skill because I'm terrible at Tecmo.
So yeah, I'm like 40-0 the last couple of years against people I don't know. So that's where I'm at on that.
Well, I think a big part of that is there's no fumbles in Tecmo Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's no.
You see like TSP guys playing Tecmo Bowl running out of bounds for no reason.
Yeah.
Don't want to fumble.
If Mort comes to my tournament, I got to remind him of that, so you can kick it up to the middle of the field.
Yeah, for sure, because that's a big gameplay difference.
He and Kevin Cabarello were practicing Tecmo Bowl during Thunder Bowl's Friday night get together. So I mean, I think those guys could probably bang and beat some players. They just kind of assimilate that stuff like the Borg, man. They're like 8-bit gods.
Mort plays Tecmo Super Bowl a lot. Like I and a couple of my buddies play Tecmo Bowl offensively, kind of methodical, slowly move down the field, don't make mistakes. So that's why I think Mort. I think he said it was a close game at halftime, and then he kind of smoked him in the second half. So I think Mort would definitely be a solid second tier guy if he comes to our tournament for sure. And there was always since there's only 4 plays, sometimes you can really get locked in picking your opponent's play. So even if he's a superior player, your odds of locking him down are better because of only 25%, the 4 plays. So, yeah, I think Mort could definitely do pretty well at our tournament.
Yep, I think so. All right, so we've went through pretty much everything we had to get through, and some definitely good questions from the chat. Troy, is there anything else that you wanted to say about the groups, or we good to wrap up?
Well, if people want to see what's going on in the tournament, because we did lock up sign up, so if you're interested in playing Tecmo, even if the day of, if you don't know the day of, you can come do that. But on the Friday the 23rd, but the 24th, we're locked in for sign up. So, but we would like to, if those of you out there, just what's this all about? Ardo Cal is professional hockey announcer. We've got a really nice stream setup that's going in place. As I mentioned, we've got really high quality connection stuff happening. Just follow us on Facebook, and then we'll disseminate all the information from there. So we'll be streaming on Facebook as well as multiple Twitch accounts, including and then this on YouTube as well. So Tom's bringing his stream set up, so we'll have at least one station, including the one on Genesis that I'm playing on, will be on this channel. So lots of NHL 94 goodness that day to consume. If you want to be hardcore about it, you can open 4 windows on your computer, because we're going to have 4 setups going. So,
and real quick, Troy, we got a question from the chat. How does the playoff format work for Green Bay?
So everyone makes the bracket, but the top 8. So everyone, you're basically playing to win your group. If you win your group, you're going to get as long as all 40 players show up, all 8 of those players will get seeded and get a bye. From there, every player will play in a series. So you have to win the 2 out of 3 games. The first game, the higher seed calls the matchup. Second game, the lower seed calls the matchup. If there's a third game, there's a coin flip. And team selection is coin flip winner has to pick 2 teams, and the other person gets to pick which of those 2 teams they want to be. The person that called the matchup is player 1, and is the home team. So you win your series, you move on, and just keeps going along the line. There is complete separation from the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo. So you can't repeat a matchup call throughout the tournament, but it has nothing to do with one or the other. So I could call Buffalo, Chicago in both tournaments if I wanted. So kind of treat it like 2 different events in the same day.
Nice. I like that format. So everyone advances after group play?
Correct. Everyone's got a puncher's chance.
Yeah. No, I like it because you could warm up a bit in the round robin, and even if you kind of sucked it up, you still got a shot at it. So,
well, the way this is timing out with having exactly 8 groups, that means 8 really good players are not playing in the first round. So a lot of fun stuff could happen in that first round of the playoff bracket. You're going to see a lot more parity at that level, especially in the Super Nintendo.
For sure.
After that, everyone's going to get destroyed by the top tiers, but at least on paper. But that's why you play the games, right?
Yeah, exactly. We'll see what happens. All right. So, Brad, where can people find you on social media on the internet?
Best place to get some information on tournament is to Facebook. It's Omaha Tecmo Bowl tournament. Obviously, the Tecmo Bowl versus RBI website. Tecmo Bowl versus RBI.com. And we have a website for the tournament, which is TecmoBowlNES.com.
Cool. Troy?
where you can find me, King of 94 Wisconsin on Facebook, and then NHL94.com on Facebook as well. We'll share a lot of the stuff that we put out as well. And then on Twitter, it's at Trojan Voice. We share everything out there as well. And then on Twitch, it's Trojan 1979 on Twitch. You'll want to follow, if you aren't already following this channel, if you got the link from our post tonight, make sure you turn notifications on for the Retro Sports Gamer. And then on Twitch, also King Raph, KINGRAPH. He will also be streaming his station. So make sure to follow all of those if you haven't already.
Thanks, Troy. And thanks, Brad, for coming on tonight. It was great to talk to you. You brought up some great questions as well that I wasn't even thinking about. So, and then the chat really chimed in tonight and brought some value to the stream for sure. So keep doing that. We love having you guys, and have a good night. Subscribe to the channel if you like this, and share it out to your retro sports gaming friends. Have a good night.
All right, thanks, Tom.